The pen gate exploded open. A 2,000-pound bull charged straight at an 8-year-old girl. Everyone screamed. Security guards shouted for people to run. The grandmother tried to pull the child away, but the massive bull didn't stop. He circled the little girl, trapping her inside a wall of muscle and horns. Fairgoers watched in horror, certain they were about to witness a tragedy. But Duke wasn't attacking. His dark eyes were locked on something no human could see yet. His ears swiveled toward danger no alarm had detected. Because this bull had been trained by a firefighter who died 5 years ago, trained to do something impossible. What Duke detected in those seconds saved 400 lives that day. And the reason he recognized that little girl? It had nothing to do with sight, and everything to do with a scent that shouldn't have existed anymore. This is their story. The Oklahoma State Fair exploded with color and sound under the brilliant September sun. Ferris wheels spun against a cloudless sky, carousel music mixed with children's laughter, and the sweet aroma of funnel cakes competed with the smoky scent of barbecue drifting from vendor stalls. Families wandered through the midway with arms full of oversized stuffed animals, faces sticky with cotton candy, embodying the pure joy of late summer in America's heartland. 8-year-old Lily Bennett clutched her grandmother's hand as they walked toward the livestock pavilion, her blonde ponytail bouncing with each excited step. She wore a denim jacket, slightly too big for her small frame, over a yellow sundress dotted with daisies. The jacket had been her grandfather's, a treasured possession her grandmother Claire had finally allowed her to wear for this special day. "Grandma, can we see the bulls first?" Lily asked, her blue eyes bright with anticipation. "You said Grandpa used to show bulls here, right?" Claire Bennett, 63, smiled sadly. "He did, sweetheart. Your grandfather loved this fair. He'd spend months preparing his animals, polishing their coats until they shined like copper." "I wish I remembered him better," Lily said quietly. Thomas Bennett had died in a fire when Lily was only 3 years old, a volunteer firefighter who'd rushed into a burning barn to save trapped horses. Lily's memories of him were fragments. Strong hands lifting her high, a deep laugh, the smell of cedar and sage that seemed to follow him everywhere. That same scent now clung faintly to the denim jacket she wore. Claire had kept it sealed in a bag for 5 years, unable to part with it, unable to wash away the last traces of Thomas. But this morning, when Lily had begged to wear something of her grandfather's to the fair, Claire had finally relented. "He would have loved showing you his world," Claire said, squeezing Lily's hand. "Come on, let's go see the cattle." The livestock pavilion was quieter than the midway, filled with the earthy smell of hay and animals. Children pressed against metal railings, pointing at prize-winning Herefords, Angus, and Brahman bulls. Teenage 4-H members stood proudly beside their animals, blue ribbons pinned to wooden posts. In pen 12 stood Duke, a magnificent Hereford bull weighing 2,300 pounds. His rust-red coat gleamed under the pavilion lights, his white face noble and striking. He belonged to James Caldwell, a rancher from Stillwater who'd purchased Duke at auction 5 years ago after Thomas Bennett's estate had been liquidated. James had wondered about Duke's unusual behaviors, the way the bull would sometimes become agitated around certain scents, as if searching for something lost. But Duke had been an exemplary show bull, calm and manageable, winning grand champion 3 years running, until today. Claire and Lily walked slowly past the cattle pens, Claire pointing out different breeds, sharing stories about Thomas's dedication to his animals. Lily listened with rapt attention, her small fingers absently playing with the collar of her grandfather's jacket. They were 20 feet from pen 12 when it happened. Duke's massive head lifted suddenly, his entire body going rigid. His nostrils flared wide, catching something on the air that shouldn't exist, couldn't exist. Cedar and sage, the exact combination Thomas had worn every single day, the scent that had meant home, safety, family. The bull's dark eyes locked onto the source. A small girl in an oversized denim jacket, her blonde hair catching the sunlight streaming through the pavilion windows. Duke's breathing changed, becoming faster, more urgent. His hooves shifted on the straw-covered floor, muscles tensing beneath his gleaming hide. Every fiber of his being focused on that scent, on the impossible presence of something he'd lost 5 years ago. The memory flooded back. Thomas's voice, calm and patient. Thomas's hand scratching behind his ears. The little girl who used to visit the barn. Thomas's granddaughter, who'd been so small, barely walking, but who Thomas had introduced to Duke with such pride and love. Duke pressed against the gate of his pen, testing it. The lock, a simple sliding bolt, wasn't designed to withstand 2,300 pounds of determined animal driven by recognition and instinct. The bolt snapped with a sharp metallic crack that echoed through the pavilion. Conversation stopped. Heads turned. A child pointed, eyes wide with shock. "Bull's loose!" someone shouted, voice cracking with panic. The gate swung open, and Duke stepped out, his massive hooves thudding against the concrete floor with the weight of a small car. His eyes never left Lily, who had turned at the commotion, her small face registering confusion rather than fear. Time seemed to fragment. Fairgoers scattered in every direction, grabbing their children, pressing against walls, diving behind barriers. A security guard fumbled for his radio, his hand shaking so badly he nearly dropped it. "We have a loose bull in the livestock pavilion. I repeat, loose bull, children present." Claire's hand tightened on Lily's shoulder, pulling her close. "Don't move, baby, don't run. Stay absolutely still." But Lily wasn't afraid. Something about the bull seemed familiar, though she couldn't explain why. His eyes, dark and impossibly expressive, held something that looked almost like recognition. Duke crossed the pavilion in seconds that felt like hours to every terrified witness. Parents covered their children's eyes, certain they were about to see a tragedy. Someone screamed. A woman began praying aloud. The bull reached Lily and stopped 2 feet away, towering over the small girl like a mountain of muscle and power. His head lowered slowly, deliberately, until his broad white face was level with hers. Claire tried to pull Lily back, but the child stood frozen, staring up at Duke with wide blue eyes. Then Duke did something that made every witness question their sanity. He pressed his forehead gently against Lily's chest, exactly where the denim jacket carried the strongest concentration of Thomas's scent. Not aggressive, not threatening. A greeting, a recognition, a reunion. Lily's small hands moved instinctively to touch Duke's face, her fingers finding the rough texture of his hide, the softness of his ears. "You're so big," she whispered, wonder replacing fear. Duke rumbled, a deep sound that vibrated through his chest into hers. Then he began to move, circling Lily slowly, methodically, his massive body creating a living barrier between the child and the panicked crowd. "What's he doing?" someone whispered urgently. "Protecting her," an old rancher in the crowd replied, his voice filled with disbelief. "Like she's one of his herd." James Caldwell pushed through the frozen crowd, his heart hammering. "Duke, easy, boy!" But even as he shouted the command, he could see this wasn't aggression. This was something else entirely. Duke continued his slow circle around Lily, his movements careful and controlled despite his size. When a man stumbled too close, the bull shifted his weight, blocking access without threat. When children nearby began to cry, Duke adjusted his position to shield Lily from the chaos without ever breaking his protective rotation. Claire stood paralyzed, watching an impossible scene unfold. The bull was guarding her granddaughter like a sentinel, like a trained bodyguard, like Thomas had trained him to do. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Thomas had spent 3 years conditioning Duke to protect family members marked with his special scent. She'd thought it was just grief therapy, a way for her husband to process the loss of their daughter. She'd never imagined the training had actually worked. "That's Thomas's bull," she breathed. "That's Duke." And Duke, circling Lily with the patience and precision of a trained guardian, had recognized the scent of his first family after 5 years of separation. Had recognized the little girl who used to toddle through the barn while Thomas worked. Was protecting her the way Thomas had taught him to protect all those years ago. In the background, barely audible over the shocked murmurs and Lily's soft giggles as she touched Duke's face, came a sound that would change everything. A faint crackling. The smell of smoke beginning to drift through the pavilion's far entrance. Duke's ears swiveled sharply toward the sound, his body tensing in a way that made James's blood run cold. The real danger hadn't even begun. Duke's entire demeanor shifted in an instant. The gentle giant who'd been carefully circling Lily suddenly went rigid, his muscles coiling beneath his rust-colored hide. His ears pinned back flat against his skull, and a low, guttural sound emerged from deep in his chest. Not the soft rumble of recognition, but a warning that made every person in the pavilion feel their survival instincts kick in. "Something's wrong," James muttered, his 30 years of ranching experience telling him this was Duke's alert posture. "That's not normal behavior." Duke's nostrils flared wide, testing the air. His head swung toward the south entrance of the pavilion, toward the vendor area where food stalls and craft booths lined the walkway. The crackling sound grew slightly louder, accompanied by the acrid smell of burning electrical wire. But the humans couldn't hear it yet, couldn't smell it. Their senses were too limited, too dull compared to the animal who'd been trained by a firefighter to recognize the first signs of danger. Duke made his decision. He stopped circling and moved directly beside Lily, using his massive head to gently but firmly nudge her backward, away from the south entrance. When she stumbled slightly, confused, he steadied her with his body, then nudged again, more insistently. "Grandma, he's pushing me," Lily said, uncertain whether to be frightened or fascinated. "Let him," Claire said, her voice tight. Something in Duke's behavior was triggering memories. Thomas drilling his animals on emergency protocols, Thomas obsessing over fire safety after their daughter Emma's death. "Lily, follow where he's guiding you." Duke continued pushing Lily toward the north exit, his movements becoming more urgent. When a crowd of confused fairgoers blocked their path, Duke bellowed, a sound so deep and commanding it rattled the metal roof panels. People scattered immediately, clearing a path. "He's herding her," the old rancher shouted. "Like a sheepdog with sheep." James tried to approach. "Duke, easy." But the bull swung his massive head toward James, not aggressively, but firmly. The message was clear. "Stay back. Let me work." Then someone near the south entrance screamed, "Fire! There's fire!" Smoke began pouring through the doorway, thick, black, toxic. The vendor area outside had erupted in flames, electrical wiring that had been damaged during setup finally sparking into a full blaze. Within seconds, the fire had jumped to the wooden vendor stalls, feeding on canvas awnings and wooden supports soaked in years of cooking grease. Panic exploded through the pavilion like a shockwave. Parents grabbed children, scrambling for exits. Vendors abandoned their stations. The calm agricultural showcase transformed into chaos as hundreds of people surged toward any available door. But Duke didn't panic. His training, burned into his memory by endless repetition under Thomas's patient guidance, took over completely. He positioned his body between Lily and the stampeding crowd, creating a mobile shield that absorbed impacts and prevented the small girl from being trampled. "Stay close to him!" Claire screamed over the noise, fighting her way through the crowd to reach her granddaughter. "Lily, hold on to his neck!" Lily's small hands grabbed Duke's thick hide, her face pressed against his warm shoulder. Duke moved with surprising grace for such a massive animal, navigating through the chaos toward the north exit, the one farthest from the spreading fire, the one with the widest clearance. The smoke thickened, acrid and choking. Fire alarms finally blared to life, their shrill scream mixing with human cries and the thunder of panicked footsteps. Through the southern windows, flames were now visible, climbing the exterior walls of connected structures. Duke never stopped moving forward. When an overturned display blocked their path, he used his horns to push it aside. When a fallen woman lay in their way, Duke stopped, refusing to step over her until James and another man pulled her to safety. "He's not just saving the girl," James gasped, hauling the woman upright. "He's clearing the path for everyone behind them." It was true. Duke's steady, purposeful movement through the chaos created a corridor of relative safety. People instinctively followed the massive bull, trusting his direction more than their own panicked impulses. Claire finally reached Lily, scooping her granddaughter into her arms, but Duke didn't leave them. He stayed positioned on their left flank, his body blocking flying debris and panicked fairgoers who weren't watching where they ran. They burst through the north exit into brilliant afternoon sunlight, just as the south wall of the pavilion erupted in flames. The heat was instantaneous and intense, a wave of superheated air that sent people stumbling forward onto the grass. Lily coughed violently in Claire's arms, her face smudged with soot. Duke stood over them both, his body still positioned protectively, his sides heaving with exertion but his stance unwavering. Behind them, dozens more people poured through the exit Duke had cleared, many coughing, some crying, all alive because a bull had detected danger 3 full minutes before any alarm system. Fire trucks screamed into the fairgrounds, their sirens adding to the chaos. Firefighters in full gear deployed hoses as smoke billowed into the perfect September sky, black and ominous against the blue. Security guards tried to approach Duke, worried the stressed animal might become dangerous, but he simply stood his ground between the approaching strangers and Claire and Lily, his message clear. They're under my protection. Don't, James commanded the guards, finally catching up. He's protecting them. He's not a threat. Fire Chief Raymond Tucker jumped from the lead truck, assessing the scene with the rapid efficiency of a veteran commander. His eyes swept across the evacuated crowd, the burning structures, and stopped on the massive bull standing guard over a woman and child. How many minutes warning did we have? Tucker barked at his lieutenant. First 911 call came at 2:47 p.m., Chief, but witnesses say the bull was alerting before that. Tucker's weathered face went pale. Before the alarm system? Yes, sir. Multiple witnesses say the bull detected it first. Tucker turned slowly toward Duke, recognition dawning in his eyes. He'd been a firefighter for 38 years, had worked alongside Thomas Bennett, had attended Thomas's funeral, and he remembered Thomas's obsession with training his animals for emergencies, an obsession everyone had dismissed as grief-driven eccentricity. Dear God, Tucker whispered. Thomas actually did it. He actually trained that bull for fire rescue. Claire looked up at the fire chief, tears cutting clean tracks through the soot on her face. Duke saved her. He saved my granddaughter. He remembered his training after 5 years. Tucker knelt beside them, his voice thick with emotion. Thomas saved her, ma'am. Through Duke. Your husband's work just saved hundreds of lives. Duke stood silent sentinel as emergency vehicles surrounded them, as paramedics treated the injured, as firefighters battled the blaze. His dark eyes remained fixed on Lily, who'd fallen asleep against her grandmother's shoulder, exhausted from fear and smoke inhalation. The bull didn't move, didn't relax his guard, because Thomas had taught him that family came first, that protection didn't end until the danger passed completely. And Duke had never forgotten a single lesson. Within an hour, the fairgrounds had transformed into a controlled emergency zone. Firefighters had contained the blaze, preventing it from spreading beyond the vendor area and the south wall of the livestock pavilion. 3 booths were completely destroyed, and structural damage to the pavilion itself was extensive, but no lives had been lost. Paramedics set up a triage station on the north lawn, where Duke had led the evacuation. Claire sat in the back of an ambulance while a medic checked Lily's vitals and oxygen levels. The little girl was stable, her lungs clear despite the smoke exposure, but they wanted to monitor her for another hour. Duke stood exactly 15 feet away, close enough to watch, far enough not to interfere with medical treatment. James remained with him, one hand resting on the bull's shoulder, feeling the animal's muscles still tense with vigilance. He won't leave them, James said quietly to Fire Chief Tucker, who'd approached to gather statements. Been standing guard for 40 minutes straight. Won't eat, won't drink, just watches. Tucker studied Duke with a mixture of awe and professional curiosity. I worked with Thomas Bennett for 8 years. He talked about training Duke constantly. We all thought it was, well, therapy. A way to cope with losing his daughter. Nobody took it seriously. Claire overheard from the ambulance. Emma died in a house fire when she was 6. Faulty wiring, just like today. Thomas became obsessed with prevention after that. He'd say, if I can teach Duke to detect fire early, maybe one child won't die the way Emma did. Her voice cracked. I thought he was going mad with grief. I never understood he was creating something extraordinary. A young reporter named Marcus Webb from Channel 9 News approached cautiously, his cameraman filming from a respectful distance. Mrs. Bennett, people are saying your granddaughter was protected by a bull who detected the fire before any alarm. Is that accurate? Claire looked at Duke, then at Lily sleeping peacefully against her shoulder. That bull was trained by my late husband, a firefighter who lost everything to fire. Thomas spent 3 years teaching Duke to recognize danger signals, smoke, heat, electrical burning, and he conditioned him to protect anyone wearing this. She touched the denim jacket Lily still wore. Thomas's scent, cedar and sage oil. He used it as a marker so Duke would know who to guard in an emergency. "So Duke recognized your granddaughter by smell?" Marcus asked, his voice hushed with disbelief. "After 5 years," Claire confirmed. He remembered the scent, remembered his training, and acted exactly as Thomas taught him. Fire Chief Tucker added his professional assessment. "We've reviewed the timeline. Security footage shows Duke exhibited alert behavior at 2:44 p.m. Our alarm system activated at 2:47 p.m. That's a 3-minute advance warning from an animal. 3 minutes that allowed for organized evacuation instead of panic stampede." "How many lives did that save?" Marcus pressed. Tucker's jaw tightened. There were approximately 400 people in and around that pavilion. The fire spread rapidly due to grease-soaked wood and fabric. If people had been trapped inside when the south wall collapsed, he didn't finish. He didn't need to. Dr. Angela Morrison, a veterinarian specializing in animal behavior, had arrived to examine Duke. She approached slowly, speaking in soft tones. The bull allowed her to check his breathing, his heart rate, his eyes, but never took his full attention off Lily. "His vitals are elevated from exertion, but he's not in distress," Dr. Morrison reported. "What's remarkable is his sustained focus. He's been in protective mode for over an hour without breaking concentration. That level of training discipline is unprecedented in cattle." "Can animals really be trained like this?" Marcus asked, his camera still rolling. Dr. Morrison nodded slowly. "Dogs, horses, even dolphins. Yes. But cattle are typically considered less trainable due to their herd mentality and limited human bonding. What Duke is demonstrating challenges everything we understand about bovine cognition." She paused, studying the bull with professional fascination. "He's not acting on instinct. He's executing learned behavior with conscious intent. That's extraordinary." James spoke up, his voice heavy with emotion. "I bought Duke 5 years ago at an estate auction. Had no idea about his background, his training. He's been a perfect show bull, calm, obedient champion bloodlines, but I never knew I was caring for something this special." "What happens to Duke now?" Marcus asked. James and Claire exchanged glances. "Duke's not going anywhere," James said firmly. "He stays on my ranch, but Mrs. Bennett and Lily are welcome any time. Duke's not just my bull anymore. He's a living legacy." Claire stood slowly, still holding Lily, and walked toward Duke. The bull's ears perked forward immediately, his entire focus shifting to them. When Claire stopped beside him, Duke lowered his massive head, pressing gently against Lily's small back as she slept. "Thank you," Claire whispered, her free hand stroking Duke's face. "Thank you for remembering. Thank you for being what Thomas knew you could be." Duke rumbled softly, that deep sound of acknowledgement, of connection. In that moment, surrounded by emergency vehicles and news cameras, a widow, a sleeping child, and a 2,300-pound bull formed a picture that would soon circle the globe. Proof that love, properly taught and faithfully remembered, could transcend death itself. By evening, Duke's story had exploded across every news platform in America. The security footage played on loop, the moment Duke broke through his pen, his protective circling of Lily, and most dramatically, the seconds when his ears had pricked toward danger no human could yet detect. "Bull saves hundreds at Oklahoma State Fair" dominated headlines. The video reached 50 million views in 8 hours. Comments flooded in from around the world. "That bull has more heart than most people. He remembered after 5 years. That's pure love. Animals are so much smarter than we give them credit for." At Mercy Hospital, where Lily had been taken for observation, doctors confirmed she'd suffered only minor smoke inhalation. But the hospital staff had a surprise. They'd set up a video call. On the screen appeared Dr. Helen Rodriguez from Cornell University's Animal Behavior Institute. "Mrs. Bennett, I've studied your husband's training methods from his journals. Your daughter donated them to our research library 3 years ago." Claire's breath caught. "I didn't know they still existed." "Thomas documented everything," Dr. Rodriguez continued. Scent conditioning, fire detection protocols, protective circling techniques. We thought they were theoretical, but Duke just proved they work. Mrs. Bennett, your husband pioneered a field that didn't exist. Animal emergency response training for livestock. Lily, now awake and alert, clutched her grandfather's jacket. Grandpa was smart, she said quietly. He was brilliant, Dr. Rodriguez confirmed, and Duke is living proof. The next morning, Claire and Lily visited James's ranch. Duke stood in his pasture, and when he saw Lily step out of the car wearing the denim jacket, he walked immediately to the fence. Lily approached slowly, her small hand reaching through the rails. Duke lowered his head, letting her touch his face exactly as she had the day before. "He's my friend now," Lily announced. Claire smiled through tears. "He always was, sweetheart. You just didn't remember." James approached with something in his hands, Thomas's original training journal, found in a box purchased with Duke. "I never looked through it until yesterday. Your husband wrote instructions for Duke's future owners. He wanted Duke to keep protecting people even after he was gone." Claire opened the worn leather journal. On the first page, in Thomas's familiar handwriting, "Duke is more than a bull. He's a guardian. Treat him with respect, and he'll protect what you love most. TB." Fire Chief Tucker arrived with official news. The state fire marshal's office wants to use Duke's response as a case study. They're proposing new research into animal early warning systems for public venues. "Thomas would love that," Claire whispered. That afternoon, as September sun painted the Oklahoma sky gold, Lily sat on the fence while Duke stood peacefully beside her. The little girl talked to him about school, about her friends, about the grandfather she barely remembered. Duke listened, his dark eyes gentle, his presence steady. He didn't understand the words, but he understood something deeper, the connection between them, forged by a firefighter's love and a bull's faithful memory. "I'll visit every week," Lily promised Duke. "Is that okay?" Duke rumbled softly and Lily laughed, pressing her forehead against his. Some bonds, it seemed, were stronger than time, stronger than death, stronger than anyone imagined possible. 6 months later, Lily stood at the fence of James's ranch, her grandfather's denim jacket now fitting perfectly after Claire had it tailored. The Oklahoma winter wind carried the scent of cedar and sage, the same scent Claire had begun making from Thomas's original recipe. Duke approached immediately, his recognition instant and certain. Lily scratched behind his ears exactly as her grandmother had taught her. "Grandpa would be proud of you," she whispered. Inside the barn, a small plaque had been mounted. Duke, Guardian, trained by Thomas Bennett, firefighter and hero. September 14th, 437 lives saved. Claire joined her granddaughter, carrying a worn photo album. "I brought pictures of your grandfather with Duke when he was just a calf. Want to see?" Lily nodded eagerly, and they sat on the fence together, flipping through images of Thomas patiently working with young Duke, teaching him commands, building trust that would one day save hundreds of lives. "The university published Grandpa's training methods," Claire said. "Fire departments across the country are studying them. Thomas's work is helping people he'll never meet." "Because Duke showed everyone it worked," Lily added proudly. James walked over with news. The governor's office called. They want Duke at the state capitol next month for the Animal Valor Award ceremony. First livestock ever to receive it. Claire smiled. Thomas would be embarrassed by the attention. But proud of Duke, James finished. As sunset painted the sky in shades of amber and rose, Lily hugged Duke's massive neck. "I love you," she whispered. "Thank you for saving me. Thank you for remembering Grandpa." Duke pressed his forehead against her chest. That gesture Thomas had taught him a lifetime ago. A promise kept, a legacy honored. Heroes, the world had learned, came in unexpected forms. Sometimes with badges and sirens, sometimes with hooves and hearts that refused to forget. And somewhere, in whatever place firefighters rest when their watch finally ends, Thomas Bennett smiled, knowing his greatest lesson had survived him. That love, properly taught, could save lives long after the teacher was gone. Duke had proven it, and he'd keep proving it, one protected child at a time, for as long as memory and devotion remain stronger than time itself. A state fair bull stops a little girl from moving. The reason leaves adults speechless.